in the heart of struggle. This is all I could buy today, my love. I can't live like this anymore. I found someone else. Papa, don't leave us. You are nothing but trouble. When everything falls apart, let me help you. I don't trust easy offers. One day I will come back rich and you will be sorry. Sometimes love finds you. In the heart of Oguta village, a small struggling community in West Africa, lived Chizoba, a devoted wife and mother. Their one-room house was barely standing. The walls were cracked and the zinc roof leaked whenever it rained. Yet between the fragile walls, love continued to bloom. Chizoba, dressed in a faded wrapper and an old blouse, stood over a small fire stirring a pot of yam porridge. The meal was simple, but her heart was filled with gratitude. Two children, Emeka, 8, and Ifeoma, 5, sat on a mat playing with small stones. Their laughter echoed through the tiny room, making it feel warm. Emeka and Ifeoma, come eat before it gets cold, Chizoba called them. Emeka asked excitedly, Mama, will Papa be eating with us today? Chizoba's smile faded slightly. She turned to the door, hope shining in her eyes. In a soft voice she said, I hope so, my love. As if it were a signal, the wooden door creaked and Eze, her husband, entered. He was a handsome man, but worry had put lines on his face. His once bright eyes were now dull with tiredness, and there was a tear near the shoulder of his shirt. His shoes had seen better days. Eze's gaze fell on the pot of yam porridge. His face twisted in disgust. More yam porridge, Chizoba? Aren't you tired of serving us this nonsense? Chizoba's heart sank. She forced a smile and put a plate in front of him. This is all I could buy today, my love. Times are hard, but I know God will bless us soon. Eze sneered, took a spoonful, then spat it out. I can't live like this anymore. I work all day as a driver, and when I get home, I find this. No real food, no money, no future. I'm tired. I need more. Chizoba's hand started to shake as she gripped the edge of her wrapper. We do what we can, Eze. We are a family, and we will get through this together. Eze stood up suddenly, pushing the plate away. Family doesn't fill the stomach. Chizoba's heart pounded. Something was wrong. Eze, what do you mean? He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the corner of the room and pulled out an old bag. Chizoba's breath caught as she watched him stuff his clothes into it. Eze, where are you going? What about us and our children? He zipped up the bag and turned to her. I've wasted enough years in this misery. I deserve better. I found someone else. Chizoba's eyes widened. Someone else? What does that mean? Eze looked down. Her name is Chinyere. She's rich, beautiful, and can give me the life I deserve. Chizoba's legs felt weak. Eze, no. Think of Emeka and Ifeoma. They need you. Eze's gaze fell for a moment on the children. Emeka was already crying while Ifeoma clung to her mother. Papa, don't leave us. Papa, please don't go. For a brief moment, Eze hesitated. Then, with a hardened heart, he pulled their little hands from his clothes and headed for the door. Eze, I beg you, don't do this to us. Without a backward glance, Eze walked out. The door slammed. Chizoba collapsed to the floor, crying her eyes out, while her children clung to her, their little bodies shaking. Life as they knew it was about to change forever. Emeka wiped his nose on his torn shirt, his little chest moving up and down quickly. Mama, where did Papa go? When will he come back? Chizoba opened her mouth, but no sound came out. How could she tell them that their father had left them for another woman? That he had left without even looking back? Papa just needs time, she whispered, searching for words that sounded hopeful. Ifeoma clung to her mother's wrapper, her little hands shaking. Mama, is it because we're poor? Chizoba's heart broke into 1,000 pieces. She took her daughter's face in her hands and kissed her forehead. No, my angel, never think that. We may not have money, but we have love, and that's much more important. Emeka frowned, squeezing his little fists. I hate Papa. He left because we don't have money. Chizoba was surprised and hugged him tight. No, we don't hate. No matter what happens, we will always pray for your father. But deep down, the pain burned. How could Eze have done this? How could he have left his own children? It was then that there was a loud knock at the door. Chizoba wiped away her tears and stood up carefully. "Who is there?" A deep and familiar voice answered. "Chizoba, open this door." Her blood ran cold. It was Adaobi, her mother-in-law. With shaking hands, Chizoba unlocked the wooden door. Adaobi stood there with an angry face. She was a strong woman with a wrapper firmly tied at the waist and a scarf on her head. Her hard gaze looked around the small, broken-down room before settling on Chizoba. "So my useless son has finally left you," Adaobi said. Chizoba swallowed the lump in her throat. "Mama Adaobi, please talk to Ize. Tell him to come back. The children need their father." Adaobi let out a dry laugh and came in, looking at Chizoba's small pot of porridge still on the floor. "What man would stay in this poverty, eating yam porridge every day? My son was suffering because of you." Emeka and Ifeoma clung to their mother's wrapper, scared by their grandmother's harsh words. "Mama, is Grandmama angry?" asked Emeka. Chizoba patted his back gently, then turned back to Adaobi. "Mama, I may not have money, but I gave my love to Eze. I was by his side when he had nothing." Adaobi gave an annoyed sound and took a small amount of money from her wrapper, throwing it at Chizoba's feet. "Here is your final payment. Take it and forget about my son." Chizoba stared at the money in shock. "Mama Adaobi, you're trying to give me money? You should thank me for bringing you something. Eze has moved on. He's now with Chinyere, a rich woman who can take care of him. Accept your fate and leave this house. It belongs to my son." Chizoba's heart stopped beating. "Leave? Where am I going to take my children?" Adaobi shrugged without any kindness. "That's your problem. Tomorrow morning, I don't want to see you here anymore." She turned and left, slamming the door. Chizoba collapsed to the floor, tears rolling down her cheeks. Emeka clenched his fists. "Mama, I won't let them chase us away. This is our home." Ifeoma, too young to understand everything, wiped her mother's tears with her little hands. "Mama, don't cry." Chizoba hugged her children close, her heart heavy with fear. Where would they go now? That night, Chizoba barely slept. How could she? In the morning, she and her children would be homeless. She lay on the hard floor, hugging Emeka and Ifeoma, whispering silent prayers to God. At dawn, she was awakened by loud knocking at the door. "Chizoba, it's morning. Pack your things." Chizoba's stomach twisted with fear. She looked at her children still sleeping. "Mama, what's going on?" asked Emeka. Before Chizoba could answer, Adaobi pushed the door open and burst in angrily. "You're still here? Do you want me to throw you out myself?" Chizoba sat up, swallowing her pride. "Mama Adaobi, I beg you. Give me time. Let me find a place to go." "Time? Do you think I have time to waste with a poor, abandoned woman like you? If you don't leave now, I'll throw all your things out." Tears welled up in Chizoba's eyes as she watched her children. She had no money, no close family, no one to turn to. At that moment, Emeka suddenly stood up on his little legs. "Grandmama, this is our home too. Papa is gone, but we are still here. Look at this little boy who thinks he is a man. If your father was still here, we might have thought about it. But he left with a better woman. You and your mother are nothing but trouble." Chizoba held back a cry and held Emeka back. "Emeka, don't answer the elders." Then she turned to Adaobi, her voice shaking with sadness. "Mama, even if you throw us out, remember that these children are your blood. One day they will grow up and remember everything. Let them remember that their mother was a failure." Adaobi then made a sign to some men waiting outside. "Throw it all out." In a few minutes, their few belongings, an old mattress, a small pot, a wooden chair, and a bag of faded clothes, landed on the dusty street. Chizoba's knees felt weak, but she refused to fall down. She gathered her things, took her children, and left. As she left, Emeka turned and glared at his grandmother. "One day I will come back rich, and you will be sorry." "Rich? You, the son of a poor woman? Keep dreaming." Chizoba squeezed Emeka's hand and whispered, "Don't let those words break you, my son. One day God will lift us up." With her children by her side and without knowing where to go, Chizoba took her first step into the unknown. The sun rose over Oguta village, covering the dusty streets in golden light. Chizoba walked from place to place, her bare feet aching from walking all night. Emeka and Ifeoma followed her, their clothes wrinkled and their faces pale with hunger. She had refused the money Adaobi had thrown at her. Her dignity was all she had left. But now, as her stomach growled and the children complained, she wondered if she had made a mistake. The women in the market were busy setting up their stalls and shouting to attract customers. The smell of frying beans cakes and boiling yams floated through the air, making Ifeoma hold her stomach. Chizoba hugged her children as she walked past a group of men loading sacks of grain into a truck. One of them recognized her, but she walked faster before he could approach her. The town was already busy with shop owners and customers. Young boys were pushing wheelbarrows everywhere. People seemed to have a purpose. But Chizoba walked towards a quiet corner near an old, empty shop and sat down on the ground. Emeka rubbed his eyes, tired. Chizoba closed hers, breathing deeply. She had no money, no food, no shelter. But she had to hold on for her children. When she opened her eyes, a figure stood before them. It was a tall, middle-aged woman, dressed in a faded wrapper and a simple blouse. Despite the lines on her face, her features showed kindness. She carried a large tray of freshly baked bread. Without a word, the woman tore off a large piece and offered it to Chizoba. Pride fought against need, but when Ifeoma groaned with hunger, Chizoba accepted the bread with a shaking hand and divided it between her children. The woman, who said her name was Neka, sat beside them, wiping her forehead. She was a widow who sold bread in the market. She had noticed Chizoba and her children walking the streets. Neka had once gone through the same thing, abandoned and poor, and knew what helplessness meant. She offered Chizoba a place to sleep in exchange for helping her sell bread at the market. It wasn't much, but at least Chizoba's children wouldn't be sleeping on the streets. Tears of gratitude welled up in Chizoba's eyes. After all she had suffered, was this finally a sign of hope? Chizoba threw herself completely into selling bread. Every morning before dawn, she would get up, adjust her wrapper, and go with Neka to the bakery. At sunrise, she would carry a large tray of bread on her head and join the other sellers at the market. She would walk the streets calling to customers, fresh bread, soft and sweet. Come by. At first, she was hardly noticed, just one more seller among so many others. But Chizoba kept trying. She smiled at all the possible customers, spoke in a soft but convincing voice, and made sure that her bread was always fresh. Little by little, regular customers began to recognize her. Some even waited for her every morning. Despite her tiredness, Chizoba drew her strength from the smiles of Emeka and Ifeoma that she found when she came home. Her small earnings allowed her to offer simple meals to the children. It was not luxury, but at least they no longer went to bed hungry. One evening, after the children had fallen asleep on their worn mattresses, Chizoba lay awake staring at the ceiling. She made a silent decision. Never again would she let her children suffer like this. No matter what it took, she would rise up. One morning, when she had just sold her last loaf of bread and was crossing the road to go home, she did not see the huge black car that was coming at full speed. Bang! A sharp pain went through her as she hit the ground. Her vision blurred. Screams rang out in the distance. She heard doors slam and footsteps rushing. "Are you okay?" asked a deep and strong voice. Chizoba blinked, trying to sit up, but pain shot through her leg. She winced. The man leaning over her was tall, well-dressed, and clearly wealthy. In his eyes there was real concern. "I'm so sorry," he said. "Let me take you to the hospital." Panic overcame Chizoba. She couldn't afford a hospital. "No, sir, I'm going to be fine. You just got hit by a car," he replied, clearly worried. Chizoba tried to get up, but wobbled. He caught her with his firm hands. "You can't go anywhere in this condition," he said. "Get in the car." Chizoba hesitated. A rich man offering to help a poor bread seller? With her sore leg, she didn't really have a choice. As he helped her in, she wondered who he was and why he was helping her. He started the car and said, "My name is Obina, by the way. You don't talk much, do you?" Chizoba remained silent. She had learned to be careful. "Where do you live?" he continued. "I'll drop you off." Chizoba's heart sank. She didn't want him to see where she was staying. "Just a little corner at Neka's. Drop me off just down the road, please," she whispered. Obina frowned but didn't insist. He drove in silence, occasionally giving her a worried look. By the time they arrived at the market area, Chizoba opened the door, but he stopped her and handed her some money. "Here," he said. Chizoba stiffened. She had already suffered enough shame and refused money. "Please, no thank you," she replied firmly. He raised an eyebrow. "You are really stubborn." She got out of the car and disappeared into the crowd without looking back. The next morning, despite the pain in her leg, Chizoba forced herself to stand up. She adjusted her wrapper, placed the tray of bread on her head, and went out into the streets of Oguta village. Ignoring the pain, she had to sell, or her children wouldn't eat. As she walked, the familiar black car stopped beside her. She froze. The window rolled down, showing Obinna with his arms crossed, an expression both amused and worried on his face. "You again," he called. Chizoba tightened her grip on the tray and wanted to walk away. "Wait," Obinna called as he got out of the car. She pretended to ignore him and tried to walk faster, but her injured leg betrayed her. She lost her balance, and her tray tilted dangerously. Before she fell, Obinna caught her. "Woman, are you crazy?" he grumbled. "Why are you outside walking like that? I told you to rest." "I have no choice," replied Chizoba. "I have to work." Obinna sighed, looking at her with a mixture of annoyance and admiration. "What if I offer you something better than carrying this bread all day on that injured leg?" She narrowed her eyes. "I don't trust easy offers." He gave a half smile. "I run a business here in Oguta. I need someone reliable to manage deliveries and take care of orders. You would work in the office. No more walking the streets with your tray." Chizoba stared at him in amazement. "But I don't have a degree. I didn't even finish secondary school." "I don't need a degree. I want someone hard-working and honest. You fit what I'm looking for," he replied simply. She took a step back, shaking her head. "Thank you, sir, but I can't." Obinna frowned. Why? Because she remembered Easy's promises too well. "I can't," she insisted, walking away. He watched her leave, an unreadable look in his eyes. That night, Chizoba thought about Obinna's offer. She glanced at Emeka and Ifeoma asleep on Neka's floor, their small hands held together. They deserved a better life. The next day, she would go find Obinna and take this job, but on her terms. When morning came, Chizoba waited by the side of the road, her heart pounding. She didn't know how to find Obinna, but he appeared again in his black car. "You were looking for me," he said, rolling down the window. She took a deep breath. "About the job. Is it still available?" He raised an eyebrow. "I thought you didn't want help." Looking up, Chizoba replied, "I'm not asking for help. If you're serious, I'll work. But I don't want any favors." A slight smile played on Obinna's lips. "Very well. Get in." Chizoba hesitated. Her experience with Easy came back to her. But looking down at her worn sandals and thinking of her children, she refused to be stopped by fear. Taking a deep breath, she got in the car. The months that followed Chizoba's hiring at Obinna Company changed her life completely. She learned quickly and got used to office work faster than expected. At first, she made mistakes on the computer and struggled with paperwork, feeling scared around more educated workers. But her hard work paid off. Little by little, she gained trust and respect. She was no longer just the bread seller, but a full member of the company. Thanks to her small but regular salary, she was able to rent a small room for Emeka and Ifeoma. It wasn't fancy, but it was their home. She bought them new clothes, school books, and good food. For the first time, Emeka and Ifeoma no longer spoke of their father. Chizoba had become both mother and father for them, and they were getting used to this new life. At the office, Obinna treated Chizoba with patience and encouragement. Some people whispered that there was more going on than just work, but Chizoba didn't pay attention. She was too busy building her future. One evening, when it was time to leave, Obinna asked Chizoba to come into his office. Her heart pounding, she entered. He asked her to sit down, looking serious. A silence hung heavy in the air, full of unspoken words. Finally, Obinna spoke, clearing his throat. "Chizoba, I've been watching you for a few months. You work harder than anyone here. Your determination, your ability to learn, it's amazing." She felt uncomfortable in her chair, not knowing where he was going with this. "I want to offer you a better position," he continued, "with a better salary, of course. But there's something else," He paused. I have feelings for you, Chizoba. I know it's unexpected, but I don't want to hide it anymore. I can't stop thinking about you. I want you to be more than just an employee. I can offer you security, Chizoba, the life you've always dreamed of. With me, all I ask is that you give us a chance. For a moment, Chizoba said nothing. She stared at Obinna, her heart pounding. Had he really said those words? She swallowed hard before speaking. Obinna, I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I can't accept. He frowned. Why? Chizoba sighed, shaking her head. Because I'm still married. Obinna gave a short laugh. To a man who abandoned you and your children. Chizoba, that's not legally a marriage. I'm still Easy's wife, explained Chizoba, and even if I wasn't, why would you want me? I'm a woman who has already given birth to 2 children. I have a past. There are plenty of young single women without a story. Why do you think I care about that? I don't see any burden in you, Chizoba. I see a strong woman who refused to let herself be broken, a woman who fought to rebuild her life when everything was against her. I see a woman who deserves love, not suffering. Chizoba turned away, a whirlwind of emotions inside her. Was this really real? Could a man like Obinna, rich, influential, respected, really want her? He sighed. I won't force you, Chizoba, but I'm not going to lie to you either. I want you by my side. Not out of pity or duty, but because I admire you. I respect you and I care about you. Chizoba bit her lip, her mind in turmoil. All this was too much, too fast. She had spent months focusing on her survival, on her children, on building a new life. She hadn't thought about love. She wasn't ready. I need time, Obinna. I can't give you an answer now. Take all the time you need, he replied. But know one thing, I won't give up. Chizoba left the office, her heart heavy with uncertainty. The days passed, and Chizoba could no longer deny the truth. Obinna had become a part of her life. She fought against it, remembering the pain of her past, the betrayal of love. But Obinna never rushed her. He was patient, steady, and unwavering in his feelings. One evening, after putting Emeka and Ifeoma to sleep, Chizoba finally made her decision. The next day at work, she entered Obinna's office. He looked up from his desk as if he sensed that something had changed in her. I accept, she said softly. A slow smile lit up Obinna's face. You're sure? She nodded. But I want us to remain quiet about it. For my children, I don't want them to feel confused or like their life is changing too quickly. Obinna respected her wish. That same weekend, he helped Chizoba and her children move into a comfortable apartment with 2 rooms in a safe neighborhood. It was not fancy luxury, but it was a world very different from the miserable room where they had once suffered. He also gave Chizoba money to buy new clothes, proper care, and everything she needed to feel like the woman she really was. Above all, he enrolled Emeka and Ifeoma in a good school. Chizoba had tears in her eyes the first day she dropped them off there. Seeing them in clean uniforms and with new school bags, for the first time she felt a real surge of hope. But there was one last thing to do: end her marriage officially. According to tradition, Chizoba's family had to return Ize's dowry to legally end the union. Without close family, she decided to take care of it herself. One afternoon she called Adaobi, Ize's mother. The old woman's voice showed no kindness. Ah, Chizoba, you finally remember me? Chizoba ignored the harsh words. Mama Adaobi, I want to return Ize's dowry. I need you to accept it. Adaobi laughed coldly. You want to be free from a man who has already forgotten you. Very well. Send the money. Anyway, Ize doesn't need you anymore. In fact, he is preparing for his wedding. His new wife offers him everything you couldn't give him. For a brief moment, Chizoba's chest tightened, but she breathed out, feeling neither pain nor bitterness. Eze belonged to the past. Obinna was her future. Meanwhile, Eze was convinced he had escaped poverty by leaving Chizoba and the children. He was sure he deserved better. Chinyere, his new partner, was rich, beautiful, and powerful. Everything Chizoba wasn't. Or at least he thought so. At first, life with Chinyere was like a dream. A big house, expensive meals, designer clothes. He finally had the comfortable life he had always dreamed of. But the dream quickly turned into a nightmare. Chinyere was not kind. She was bossy, demanding, and cruel. At first it was subtle. Chinyere corrected his way of speaking, telling him to be more refined in public. Then she started to make fun of him in front of her wealthy friends. "There's Eze," she said in a falsely proud tone, "my little project. I picked him up from the gutter and made a man of him." It hurt at the beginning, but each time, a little of his pride died. Then came the rules. She controlled everything: his clothes, the people he could talk to, even what he could eat. He had no voice in his own life. Adaobi, Eze's mother, believed that she too would benefit from her son's marriage to a rich woman. She was wrong. One Sunday, Adaobi showed up without warning with a basket of food, hoping to cook for her son. The security guard refused to let her in. Forbidden, Adaobi called Eze. "Eze, tell your guard to let me in," she ordered. But before Eze could answer, Chinyere snatched the phone from him. "Listen to me, you miserable old woman," she snapped. "This isn't a village where anyone can just drop in without warning. If you want to see your son, make an appointment." Adaobi was speechless. Eze froze as Chinyere hung up. The next evening, he took his courage in both hands and spoke about the tone used towards his mother. "My mother is still my mother. You shouldn't have spoken to her like that," he said carefully. "Your mother. That peasant. What does she know about this life?" Chinyere's eyes darkened, and before he could react, she slapped him violently. A stinging heat spread across his cheek. He remained speechless in shock. Chinyere looked at him with disgust. "I'll be clear, Eze," she hissed. "I own this house, these clothes, the car you drive. It's thanks to me. If you ever raise your voice at me again, you'll go back to the gutter I pulled you out of." Eze's hands trembled. He had never been slapped by a woman, and it wouldn't be the last time. The slaps multiplied. If he talked too much, a slap. If he didn't react quickly enough, another slap. If he dared to remember he was a man, she laughed and slapped him harder. Eze ended up avoiding all conflict, walking around his house on tiptoe. He learned to lower his voice, never to contradict her, and to take it all in silence. The staff of the house watched without saying anything. No one dared challenge Chinyere. Adaobi, still hurt at having been rejected, tried to reach him again. She called Eze directly. "Eze, my son, I don't understand what's going on, but I want to see you. Come visit me, please," she begged. Eze hesitated. He knew Chinyere wouldn't approve, but he missed his mother. So he lied, pretending he had a business meeting, and rushed to her house. They shared a meal of pounded yam with vegetable soup, and for the first time in months, he felt at peace. But it didn't last. Chinyere called him several times. When he didn't answer, she tracked his phone. An hour later, she burst into Adaobi's house. No sooner had Eze gotten up than a brutal slap landed across his face. "You good-for-nothing," screamed Chinyere. "You're going to sneak out and eat that disgusting cheap food with that miserable old woman." Adaobi stayed stunned. Eze, his cheek burning, was too ashamed to speak. Chinyere turned to Adaobi with a cold look. "Listen to me, old woman. This is the last time you'll see my husband. You hear me?" Adaobi trembled with anger. "Chinyere, I'm his mother." "So what? I'm the one feeding him now, not you. So stay out of our lives." Adaobi put a hand to her chest, her eyes clouded with tears. Eze hung his head, feeling worthless. He was dying to defend his mother, but fear tied his tongue. Chinyere grabbed his wrist and dragged him outside. Meanwhile, Chizoba's life had changed completely. No more misery and tears. Obinna had become her rock, her protector, and her source of happiness, everything Eze had never been. Kind, patient, and truly loving, her children Emeka and Ifeoma adored him. Unlike Eze, who had given them very little attention, Obinna treated them like his own children. Every day, Chizoba woke up thanking God. "If Eze hadn't left me, I would never have met the man who truly loves me," she often thought. One evening, while she and Obinna were sitting on the balcony of their new home, he took on a tender and serious look. "Chizoba," he said softly, "I want to talk to you about something important." "What is it?" He smiled. "I would like us to have a child together. I love Emeka and Ifeoma as if they were my own, but I would like us to have a baby. A child that unites us all even more into one family." Chizoba's heart skipped a beat. "You're sure?" "More than ever," replied Obinna. "I want to build a whole life with you." Chizoba's heart was overflowing with gratitude. She, who had so long felt neglected, unloved, taken for granted, now God had given her a man who cherished her. She squeezed his hand and nodded. "So let's do it." 2 weeks later, Obinna surprised Chizoba with a beautiful marriage proposal. She thought it was just a simple dinner for two, but at the end of the meal, Obinna stood up and got down on one knee. "Chizoba," he began, his voice filled with emotion, "I have loved you since the day I met you. You are the strongest and most beautiful woman I have ever known. You make me happy every day, and I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy." He took out a sparkling ring. "Will you marry me?" Chizoba didn't hesitate. "Yes. Yes, Obinna, I want to marry you." No sooner had she said those words than Obinna put the ring on her finger and pulled her into his arms. She would never have imagined being there, dressed in a beautiful white dress, standing in front of the man she truly loved. Her journey had been long and painful, and yet here she was, about to say yes to the one who had wiped away her tears, welcomed her children, and offered the love she never thought she deserved. Obinna refused a small ceremony. "It's my queen's wedding," he insisted. "The whole world must see how much I love you." The ceremony was therefore grand, organized in one of the most beautiful places in the region. As soon as Chizoba walked down the aisle, silence fell. She was dazzling. Her dress, designed by a great fashion designer, trailed elegantly behind her. Obinna watched her with absolute adoration. He wasn't just marrying a beautiful woman, he was marrying his soulmate. When Chizoba reached him, tears of joy shone in her eyes. This was not a dream. She was about to say yes to a man who had accepted her children as his own and given her the love she didn't know she deserved. When it was time for the vows, Obinna took her hands and looked into her eyes. "Chizoba, from the moment I met you, I knew you were different. You have a heart of gold, incredible strength, and a love so pure it has changed my life. Today I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you for the rest of my days." Chizoba struggled to hold back her tears. In a trembling voice, she replied, "Obinna, you came into my life when I least expected it, and you showed me what it means to truly love. I promise to stay by your side, to love you with all my being, and to build a beautiful future with you, for us and our children." The guests were moved to tears. The photos and videos of the wedding quickly spread on social media, where the news made a big splash. Everyone was talking about this mother who was once struggling and was now loved by a powerful and kind man. The comments were pouring in, "God bless this union. She deserves all the love in the world, proof that when one door closes, God opens a wider one. Her ex must be regretting now. Look what he lost." The reception was a real celebration. Chizoba and Obinna danced with joy, and at the end of the evening, she looked into his eyes and whispered, "Thank you for choosing me." He smiled, holding her tight. "No, my love," he breathed, "thank you for letting me love you." They exchanged a kiss under the twinkling lights, and Chizoba knew that this was only the beginning of endless happiness. Meanwhile, Ez wandered around the huge and cold house that he had once believed to be the key to a better life. In reality, it was a prison. Chinyere, the woman for whom he had left his wife and children, was turning his life into hell. She no longer considered him as a husband, but as a simple servant. He had no right to touch her, had to beg for every penny, and endured her insults every day. One evening, unable to take it anymore, Ezi grabbed his phone and started scrolling through Facebook. That's when he saw the photos of Chizoba's wedding. His heart sank. There, before his eyes, stood the woman he had abandoned, radiant in the arms of a rich man. The caption said, "A true love story. Chizoba finds happiness." Ezi's hands began to tremble. Chizoba shone like never before in a magnificent dress, while Obinna looked at her with eyes of sincere love. Emeka and Ifeoma, all smiles, stood next to Obinna as if he were their father forever. Ezi's vision blurred, and he struggled to breathe. The woman he had abandoned had become a queen, while he lived as a slave in a toxic relationship. He put his head in his hands, devastated. "No, it's not possible," he whispered. "Chizoba was supposed to wait for me. She was supposed to be there when I came back." Just at that moment, Chinyere came in. "What's wrong with you?" she said sharply. Eze looked at her, his face pale. Chizoba got married, he said in a blank voice. Chinyere rolled her eyes. Oh, that useless ex-wife. Who would want her? To be honest, she was dead weight. If another man picked her up, good for him. You should be glad someone else is feeding your children now. Chinyere's words were like a knife in his heart. At that precise moment, Eze realized the full extent of his mistake. Eze couldn't sleep that night. He kept staring at the ceiling, replaying Chizoba's wedding photos in his mind. The way Obinna looked at her, with genuine love and respect, was something he had never given her. The happiness radiating from his children's faces as they stood beside their new father figure cut through him like a blade. He remembered how Emeka had cried when he left, begging him not to go. How Ifeoma had clung to his legs with her tiny hands. He had pushed them away without a second thought, chasing after what he believed was a better life. Now, watching Chinyere sleep beside him, cold and distant even in her dreams, he realized he had traded gold for fool's gold. The next morning, Chinyere woke up in her usual foul mood. Eze, where's my breakfast? Do I have to do everything myself in this house? Eze, still lost in his thoughts, moved slowly to prepare her meal. His hands shook as he buttered her bread. What's wrong with you today? You're even more useless than usual, Chinyere snapped, examining her manicured nails. Chinyere, Eze said quietly, I want to see my children. She looked up sharply. Your children? Those street rats? Why? They're still my blood. I want to see how they're doing. Chinyere laughed coldly. Have you forgotten? Your precious ex-wife just married some rich man. Your children have a new daddy now. They don't need you anymore. Each word was like a physical blow. Eze's chest tightened with a pain he had never experienced before. The pain of realizing that his children had moved on without him. Besides, Chinyere continued, applying her lipstick, if you even think about contacting that woman or those children, you can pack your bags. I won't have you embarrassing me by running back to your past. Eze nodded silently, but inside his heart was breaking. Meanwhile, Chizoba was living in a completely different reality. Her new home with Obinna was filled with laughter, love, and genuine happiness. Every morning, she woke up grateful for the second chance God had given her. Obinna had not only accepted Emeka and Ifeoma as his own children, but he actively participated in their upbringing. He helped Emeka with his homework, took Ifeoma to dance classes, and made sure they both felt secure and loved. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, a real family meal, something Chizoba had only dreamed of during her marriage to Eze, Emeka looked up at Obinna. Papa Obinna, he said, will you teach me how to drive when I'm older? Obinna smiled warmly. Of course, son. I'll teach you everything you need to know to be a good man. Chizoba's eyes filled with tears of joy. Her children had a father figure who truly cared about their future. Ifeoma, not to be left out, climbed onto Obinna's lap. Papa Obinna, when is our baby brother or sister coming? Chizoba and Obinna exchanged knowing glances. They had been trying for a child, and just that morning, Chizoba had confirmed what she had suspected. She was pregnant. Very soon, princess, Obinna said, kissing Ifeoma's forehead. Very soon. That night, after the children were asleep, Chizoba and Obinna talked about their growing family. I never thought I could be this happy, Chizoba confessed, resting her head on his shoulder. Sometimes I wake up thinking it's all a dream. It's not a dream, my love, Obinna replied, stroking her hair. This is your life now. Our life, and it's only going to get better. 6 months later, Chizoba gave birth to a beautiful baby girl they named Chioma, which means God is good. The birth announcement spread quickly through their community, and congratulations poured in from friends and colleagues. But the news also reached unwanted ears. Eze saw the birth announcement on social media while hiding in Chinyere's bathroom, the only place he could use his phone without her watching. The photo showed Chizoba, glowing with maternal joy, holding their baby daughter, while Obinna looked on with pure adoration. Emeka and Ifeoma stood beside the hospital bed, grinning as they met their new sister. It was the picture of the perfect family, the family he had destroyed. Eze's knees gave out, and he sank to the cold bathroom floor, sobbing quietly. He had lost everything. His wife had found true love. His children had a better father. And now they had a new family member who would never know him as anything but a stranger. His mother, Adaobi, was also struggling with the consequences of her actions. Since Chinyere had forbidden Eze from seeing her, she spent her days alone in her small house, filled with regret. She had thrown out Chizoba and her grandchildren for a wealthy daughter-in-law who treated her like trash. Now those same grandchildren were thriving in the care of a man who loved them, while she had been cut off from her own son. One evening, Adaobi made a decision that required all her courage. She traveled to Chizoba's new neighborhood and waited outside their beautiful home. When Chizoba emerged from the house with baby Chioma in her arms, Adaobi stepped forward. "Chizoba," she called out, her voice trembling. Chizoba turned and her face immediately hardened when she saw her former mother-in-law. "Mama Adaobi," she said coolly, "what do you want?" Adaobi looked at the woman she had once despised and mistreated. Chizoba was glowing with health and happiness, dressed in fine clothes, carrying a beautiful baby. This was not the poor, desperate woman she had thrown out of her son's house. I came to see my grandchildren," Adaobi stammered. "Your grandchildren?" Chizoba's voice was firm but not unkind. "The same grandchildren you helped throw onto the street. The ones you called troublesome burdens." Adaobi's eyes filled with tears. "Chizoba, I was wrong. I was so wrong. I thought Chinyere would bring happiness to my son, but she has destroyed him. She won't let me see him. I am alone, and I realize now that I lost everything when I lost you and the children." Chizoba looked at the older woman who had once been so cruel to her. She felt a mixture of emotions, anger for the past, but also pity for the broken woman before her. "Mama Adaobi," Chizoba said gently, "I forgive you, but my children have moved on. They have a father who loves them and a family that values them. I won't allow them to be confused or hurt by the past. Please," Adaobi begged, "just let me see them. Let me tell them I'm sorry." Chizoba shook her head. "Some wounds take time to heal. Maybe someday, but not now. Go home, Mama Adaobi. Make peace with your mistakes." As Adaobi walked away, defeated and alone, Chizoba felt no satisfaction in turning her away. She felt only sadness for the choices that had led them all to this point. Back in Chinyere's mansion, Eze's life continued to deteriorate. The woman who had promised him luxury and happiness had revealed herself to be a monster. She controlled every aspect of his life, and when she was angry, which was often, she took it out on him physically and emotionally. One night, after a particularly brutal fight where Chinyere had struck him repeatedly and called him worthless, Eze made a desperate decision. He would try to contact Chizoba. He knew she was married and happy, but he had to try to apologize, to see his children one last time, to somehow make amends for the terrible mistakes he had made. Using a borrowed phone from a sympathetic house cleaner, he called the number he remembered. His heart pounded as the phone rang. "Hello?" came Chizoba's voice, as sweet and gentle as he remembered. "Chizoba," he whispered, "it's me. It's Eze." There was a long silence on the other end. "Eze," she finally said, her voice steady, "why are you calling me?" I saw your wedding photos. I heard about the baby. I need to apologize." "Apologize?" Chizoba's voice remained calm. "For abandoning your children when they needed you most. For choosing money over family. For breaking your marriage vows." Each word hit him like a physical blow, but he knew he deserved everyone. "Yes," he said, his voice breaking, "for all of it. I was wrong, Chizoba. I was so wrong. I threw away the most precious thing in the world." "You did," she agreed simply. "But that's in the past now. We've all moved on." "Please," Ez begged, "let me see the children. Let me explain to them." "No," Chizoba interrupted firmly. "They have a father now, a real father who loves them and would never abandon them. They don't need the confusion and pain of someone who gave up on them, returning to disrupt their peace. But I'm their real father." "A real father doesn't abandon his children for a richer woman," Chizoba replied. "A real father protects and provides for his family. A real father puts his children before his own desires. You chose to stop being their father the day you walked out that door." Eze was crying now, unable to hold back his tears. "I know I don't deserve it, but please, I'm begging you." "Eze," Chizoba said, and for a moment her voice softened. "I don't hate you. I actually thank God every day that you left us. If you hadn't, I would never have found true love. I would never have known what it means to be cherished and respected. My children would never have known what it feels like to have a father who actually wants them. I want them, Ezi protested. I love them. If you truly love them, Chizoba said quietly, then you'll leave them alone. You'll let them be happy. You had your chance to be their father, and you chose to walk away. Don't come back now and try to disrupt the peace and security they've finally found. The line went quiet for a moment, then Chizoba spoke again. Goodbye, Eze. Don't call here again. The phone went dead. Eze sat in the darkness, holding the silent phone, knowing that he had lost his family forever. Not just through divorce or separation, but through his own selfish choices. They were gone, and there was no way back. Years passed. Chizoba's family continued to flourish. Obina's business expanded, and he made Chizoba a full partner. She had found her calling in business and proved to be naturally gifted at it. Emeka grew into a confident young man, excelling in school and sports. He often told people that Obina was his father, never mentioning Ease. Ifeoma became a bright, talented girl who loved music and dance. Little Kioma was the joy of everyone's heart, a happy toddler who filled their home with laughter. Chizoba sometimes thought about Ezi, wondering what had become of him. She had heard rumors that his relationship with Chinyere had soured badly, but she felt no satisfaction in his suffering. She had moved beyond anger and resentment to a place of genuine peace. One Sunday morning, as the family was getting ready for church, Emeka approached his mother. "Mama," he said, "I want to change my surname to Obina name. I don't want to carry the name of someone who abandoned us. Papa Obina is my real father." Chizoba looked at her eldest son, now almost 16, and saw the determination in his eyes. She also saw the love and respect he had for the man who had raised him. "Are you sure, my son?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Emeka replied. "That man gave up the right to be our father. Papa Obina earned it." Chizoba hugged her son tightly. "Then we'll make it official." That evening she discussed it with Obina, who was moved to tears by Emeka's decision. "I would be honored," he said, "to have them carry my name." Meanwhile, Eze's life had reached its lowest point. Chinyere had finally grown tired of him and thrown him out of the house with nothing but the clothes on his back. He was living in a small room in the poorest part of town, surviving on odd jobs and the charity of sympathetic neighbors. His mother, Adaobi, had fallen ill and died alone, still estranged from her son. He learned of her death days after the funeral, adding guilt and grief to his already overwhelming burden of regret. One day, while walking through the market looking for work, he saw them. Chizoba was there with Obina and the children, shopping for groceries. They were all dressed well, laughing and talking together like the loving family they had become. Kioma, now a toddler, was riding on Obina's shoulders, while Emeka and Ifeoma walked beside their parents, sharing some joke. Eze watched from a distance, hidden behind a stall, his heart breaking all over again. His former wife looked radiant, more beautiful than he had ever seen her. His children, no, Obina's children now, were healthy, happy, and clearly loved. For a moment, Ifeoma looked in his direction. Eze held his breath, wondering if she would recognize him. But her gaze passed right over him without a flicker of recognition. To her, he was just another stranger in the market. That's when Eze realized the full truth of his situation. He wasn't just estranged from his children, he had become invisible to them. They had erased him from their lives so completely that they no longer even recognized his face. He turned and walked away, tears streaming down his cheeks, finally understanding that some mistakes are too big to ever be undone. As Chizoba's family drove home that day, she felt a strange sensation, as if someone had been watching them. She turned to look back at the market, but saw nothing unusual. "Is everything all right, my love?" Obina asked, noticing her distraction. "Yes," she said, settling back into her seat and taking his hand. "Everything is perfect." And it was. She had learned the most important lesson of her life. Sometimes losing what you think you want is the only way to find what you actually need. Her journey from abandonment to love, from poverty to prosperity, from despair to joy, had taught her that God's plans are always better than our own. As they drove through the streets of Oguta village, past the places where she had once struggled and suffered, Chizoba said a silent prayer of gratitude. She had found her true home, her real family, and her genuine happiness. The story of Chizoba was no longer one of a woman abandoned and broken. It was the story of a woman redeemed, restored, and deeply loved, exactly as she deserved to be. What did you think of this story? Do you think Chizoba should have given Ease one last chance? Share your opinions in the comments. See you in the next story. Have a great day. Bye-bye.